Welcome, adventurers. The results are in, with 47% voting for a video ranking each of the classes in Pathfinder 2nd Edition 1 through 23. So, here it is. First, let's talk a little bit about the methodology, and remember this is going to be a ranking, not a tier list, so there will not be any ties throughout. What I did is I gave each class a 1 through 5 score in 5 different categories. That's combat, which I am focusing on just dealing damage and receiving or avoiding damage pretty much in the combat category. Exploration, this would be your ability to navigate your way through social encounters, do some thieving or investigating, fact-finding, tracking things, that sorts of stuff. Support, that's going to be your ability to heal as well as buff and debuff. Roleplay, that is specifically the roleplay hooks that are inherent in the class itself. And then finally, my personal opinion, because, well, this is a personal opinion video. I also added some additional modifiers, either a -1, -2, a +1, or a +2, for things that I thought needed to be called out that weren't necessarily well represented in any of the other scores. And then finally, after all of that, if 2 classes ended up with the exact same numeric score, I just did a decimal point tiebreaker so that everything was listed in order. And remember, this is based solely on the classes. So you might think, well, I have pick a class fighter that's actually really good at something I didn't give it a good score in. But remember, that could be due to your ancestry or background or additional feats, and we're really focusing just on the classes today. Another key thing to note is that I started this ranking spreadsheet that I have before I even had a YouTube channel, so it's been going on for a long time. It continually changes, and my opinion on the various classes always changes, and I don't think I've ever been able to go through it twice and come out with the same results. So you're going to disagree with me on some of these things, and in fact, I'm going to disagree with me. As I was going through and editing the script, I made multiple more changes, and I'm sure when I'm going through today, I'm going to see a few things that I will call out and say, hey, I don't know, maybe I should have done that differently. But I'm pretty confident, at least in the 1 through 23 part of things, even if there might be a few little subscores that could be changed. And I think that's it for the preamble, so let's get going. All right, so what we're going to do is start in the middle and then work our way outward. So I'm saving the worst and the best for last, and we're starting right in the middle. Ranked number 12, I have the Druid. I give the Druid 3 out of 5 in combat, 4 in exploration, 4 in support, 3 in roleplay, and 3 for my personal opinion. As far as the combat score goes, Druids have shield block and medium armor, which makes them very tanky for spellcasters, so that helps. And the primal spell list does have some pretty decent attack spells on it. Exploration, well, they're going to be really good in nature, wisdom, survival checks, those kinds of things. The support, well, they're really, really good at healing. They're going to have the heal spell, there's the Goodberry focus spell, and then between your high wisdom score and then probably natural medicine or some herbalist kind of background or feats that is really going to synergize well with the class, you're going to be able to support your team quite a lot. And as far as the opinion goes, I mean, yeah, they're just, I kind of see the Druid as a perfect middle of the line class. I did give it a -1, not -2, -1 for anathemas, just because they are there mechanically, but I don't see people using them quite a lot. So I don't know, whenever there are mechanics that are just disregarded, I think that's worth calling out. So with a score of 16, the Druid gets a rank of number 12. All right, and now on to number 13 in my list, which is where I have the Barbarian. No question here, they get a 5 out of 5 on combat, but only a 1 in exploration and support, because I can't really think of any class features that lend themselves to either. As far as support goes, well, in combat, a Barbarian can't take any actions with the Concentrate trait unless they use Moment of Clarity, so they're really kind of just locked into smashing. As far as roleplay goes, well, getting angry and raging is a pretty easy role-playing hook for a player to latch onto, and I do give them a 4 out of 5 for my personal opinion because I think they're really effective, they're pretty fun to play, and they're really good for beginners. As far as some other adjustments, I do give them a -1 for being kind of a crit magnet and needing a lot of support from the team, but I give them a +2 for just how powerful and effective they are. It really needs to be stated. So this gives them a total of 15. I gave them a tiebreaker up to 0.4, 15.4. So yeah, there are a lot of similar scores in here, you'll see. And all of that lands the Barbarian at number 13. On to number 11 with the Swashbuckler. They get a 4 out of 5 in combat because panache is really decent and those finishers can be nasty. 3 in exploration because they are a pretty skill-heavy class. 2 in support. They do have some intimidation and other sort of distraction-based feats, which are pretty good at not only buffing themselves, but, debuffing the enemies at the same time. Roleplay, 4, honestly maybe should be a 5 because doing daring dumb things as part of a core mechanic really lends itself to some fun roleplaying. And then my personal opinion on them is a 4. I really like the class. I do have to give them a -1 for being pretty heavily multiple attribute dependent, and that might also be why they're just not effective as they could be, why they don't have a 5 in combat, or in my personal opinion. But they do have a total of 16 with a 0.1 tiebreaker, landing the Swashbuckler at number 11. At number 14, I have the Rogue, which I know might surprise some people. I give them a 4 out of 5 on combat because sneak attack is really good. I give them a 5 out of 5 in exploration because all of the skill training, the thieving, they are the ultimate skill monkey, so of course they're going to be good in exploration. I give them a 2 in support because I feel like a lot of Rogue gameplay sort of focuses on everyone else do the distracting work and let me sneak around back. Not necessarily, they're playing a role, but they're not necessarily helping other allies out directly. Roleplay, 3 out of 5. My personal opinion is only a 2, and I did give them a -1 for being a little passé. They're sort of in every campaign. They're almost a little overpowered in the skills, so they kind of they show up a little bit too often, I think, and it's almost always the thief rogue, let's be honest. So I'm just going to dock them a little bit for that. Just not my personal favorite playstyle to be as abundant as it is. They do get a total score of 15. I gave them a 0.3 tiebreaker, so they're at 15.3, and that does land the Rogue at slot number 14 in my ranking. On to number 10, where I have the Ranger. They get a 3 out of 5 in combat. Decent combat abilities, but they do suffer against larger numbers of enemies. 4 in exploration because that hunt prey tracking bonus, their tendency to be pretty high in wisdom in addition to their martial abilities really does mean they can do quite a lot for your party when you're not in combat. I give them a 2 for support because they don't have that many support features. With some of the outwit sort of branch of play, you can share knowledge with teammates, so that's helpful. Roleplay, 3. Opinion, 3. I do give them a +1 for being a boss killer, for being pretty good in 1 or 2 enemy combatant fights, which is really helpful. This gives them a total score of 16 with a 0.2 tiebreaker, and that lands the Ranger at number 10. On to number 15, which, kind of surprising to me at least, is the Investigator. I give them just a 2 out of 5 in combat. I know a lot of people like devise a stratagem. I just continue to see people screw the mechanics up, do the mechanics incorrectly. And it happens in so many different ways. I can't give devise a stratagem a very high score just due to the number of misinterpretations I see. I also still don't really think it has all that much combat utility unless you are using a ranged weapon. If I ever were to play as an Investigator, it absolutely would be a ranged fighter. This would be a good way to do it. They do get a 5, of course, out of 5 in exploration. I think they are the only class that I consider to be truly exploration-based, so of course they're going to do well here. They get a 3 in support because they can share knowledge with other people. They get a 4 in roleplay, a lot of role-playing hooks here. I think that's why a lot of people like the class. Personal opinion is just a 2 because I am a little bit combat and mechanic focused. And then, again, devise a stratagem, I've got to give them another -1 just for how often I see that incorrectly done. Just a little too complicated, not clear, not all that advantageous at times. This does give them a total score of 15 with a 0.2 tiebreaker, landing the Investigator at number 15. All right, on to number 9 with the Magus. Combat, 4 out of 5. They hit so hard, but sometimes they miss. Exploration, 3, because, well, they do have spells and cantrips available to them. Support, 1. I mean, I feel like they are pretty much focused on doing damage. Arcane spells are not going to be healing spells, so they're kind of just like the hard hitters. Roleplay, 3, a fair amount to hook into there. And then my opinion is a 4. I really do like this class. And I'm going to go ahead and give them a +1 for really starting the true Gish capabilities that we're now seeing more of actually doing magic and martial at the same time, not just choosing between which one you're going to do on a certain turn, but actually doing it at the same time with a strike that is also magical. I think that's really cool. That gives them a 16 with a tiebreaker of 0.3, so for 16.3, and that lands the Magus at number 9. On to number 16, the Sorcerer. Combat, 3. Decent spells, pretty squishy, but a lot of attacks in there, so just kind of middle of the line. Exploration, also 3. I feel like spellcasters will always do pretty well in exploration because you can grab those, not combat focused, but water breathing and other kind of spells like that just help the team in various non-combat scenarios. Support, I gave them a 3 because you can have your sorcerer be a healer or a buffer or a debuffer as well, so they're pretty good at that. Roleplay, also a 3, sort of that blood magic flowing within you. And opinion, 3. They are 3s across the board, pretty just evenly spaced. I think that I like the sorcerer really for beginners. It's, I think, the sweet spot of pretty powerful, but also pretty easy to understand. So it's a very good class for that reason. Just personally for me, I tend to go a little bit more towards the bookwormy or weird or, I don't know, gishy kinds of characters, so I'm only going to give them a score of 15 with a tiebreaker of 15.1, and that lands the Sorcerer at number 16 in my list. Going back up to the top half of the list, at number 8, we have the Psychic, one of the newer classes. Combat, 4. They're pretty good at this with their ability to add damage to spells and cantrips, which other classes can't do. Exploration, 3. Again, any spellcaster is going to do okay, at least in exploration. Plus, as a psychic, you're either going to be intelligence based, so you'll have lots of skills, or charisma based, so you will be good at diplomacy, things like that. Support, I gave them a 2. Arguably could be higher because Restore the Mind is a very good ability. Roleplay, 3, and my opinion of them is also a 3. I did give them a +1 for their 2-for-1 focus ability. They get to, with 1 focus 10-minute session, restore 2 focus points. They also start with 2 focus points, and I think that is really cool. So they're going to get a total score of 16 with a pretty decent tiebreaker of 0.4. 16.4 lands the Psychic at number 8. On to number 17. Back towards the bottom of the list, but not quite in the dredges yet, is the Inventor. Combat, I'm giving them a 4 out of 5 because Overdrive is pretty handy, as well as Exploding, and the Construct Companion, as I know from one of my campaigns, is really powerful. Exploration, 3. They are intelligence-based, so they'll have lots of skills. Support, gave them a 1. Although now that I think of it, the Searing Restoration is a pretty decent healing ability, so maybe it should be a 2. Roleplay, I'm giving them a 4 because I think that there is a lot to hook onto here, being sort of the mad scientist type. And opinion is a 3. I would go a little higher if I could find more armor or weapon innovations that I'm really excited about, but I feel like the Construct is sort of obviously the better of those. at least from what I've seen, so I can't give them much higher of a overall opinion than that. That does give them a score of 15 even, and that does put them at slot number 17 in the ranking list. And now we are on to number 7, which is where I have placed the new Kineticist. Combat is a 4 out of 5 because, man, that elemental blast, being able to do 1 or 2 actions in melee and ranged is really good. Exploration, I'm giving them a 2, maybe it could be more. Again, they're not a spellcaster, but they kind of have spell-like abilities, which I feel like could help. They are constitution-based, which means they're not really going to get much of a bonus from their key ability score to anything in exploration. So they're not going to get the 3 that a typical spellcaster would at least get. Support, I'm going to give them a 4 because as you progress, there are lots of cool things that can happen in your aura that buff or debuff or heal. Roleplay, 3. I mean, it's Avatar Last Airbendery, so it's kind of easy to understand. And my personal opinion of them is a 3. Some of the elements I think are way cooler than others. I absolutely love the earth and wood and the combinations and being able to do like super cool battlefield control, and I think it's like jagged berms is the ability later on. I really want to play as that Kineticist soon. They get a total score of 16 with a very hefty tiebreaker of 0.5, 16.5. That places the Kineticist at slot number 7. Down to number 18, I have the Alchemist. Combat, they get a 3. Bombs are pretty decent. I feel like poisons and mutagens, not so much. Exploration, another 3. Being trained in crafting and alchemical crafting and being intelligence-based is going to help out a lot. Support, they get a 3 because, well, you can make things that are consumables for your team, although sometimes my team didn't care for them. Roleplay, again, a 3. Kind of another mad scientist here. And then my personal opinion is actually a 4 because I really like the flavor of this class. I wish mechanically it was a little bit better. I have a lot of adjustments here. They get a -1 for having hordes of -2 junk. The -1 is that inventory management as an alchemist is tough. And then -2 is better now. There are better mutagens and things, but I remember in my campaign, I tried to get into mutagens and it just didn't help out much. My team was sort of reluctant to use them because the benefits didn't really outweigh the drawbacks and the penalties of some of the mutagens, and the action economy just sort of wasn't there to support their use. But I did give them a +1 for being able to craft so much stuff every day for free. All those adjustments after that, they get a total score of 14, and that lands them at slot number 18. All right, almost to the top and bottom 5 now. Not quite yet, though. We are at number 6, where we have the Cleric. They only get a 2 out of combat because the divine spell list isn't that strong in attack spells. Just a 2 in exploration as well, but a 5 in support because of all of those healing abilities and guidance and things like that, and bless and bane. Roleplay, a 3, it's pretty easy to understand, and personal opinion is a 4. I give them another +1 just due to that divine font and all of the healing. I really like the Cleric class. I especially like the War Priest and am glad it is now improved. That might even bump them a little bit higher in the future for me. I do feel like it is the class you always want in your party, but people often don't want to play because you're just kind of sometimes the reluctant healer, but it is so handy at doing that healing role, and it's so necessary in Pathfinder 2nd edition, so they have a pretty decent score of 17, which does land them at position number 6. All right, we are now to the bottom and top 5, starting with number 19, the Gunslinger. They get a 4 out of 5 for combat because, man, they can do some damage. 2 for exploration because, well, maybe that one should be a 1, and maybe support should be a 2, but they're a 1 and 2, so it works out. In support, there are some reload capabilities that do debuff the enemy, so that's helpful, but I feel like a lot of Gunslinger gameplay tends to be, I'm going to hide in the back, I'm going to stay safe, I'm going to pick my shot, and it's kind of all about just staying out of the way and doing damage. Roleplay, 3. You've got that sort of inherent outlaw feel to it. And then my personal opinion is a 3. I think that the way that the reloads work is really cool, and we're seeing more of those specialty reloads now. So I think it was kind of the first of starting that sort of paradigm of ranged characters get cool reloads. But I still feel like sometimes I would rather not have a gunslinger in the system, and I would rather lean fully into like high fantasy of just swords and shields and magic and that kind of stuff. So they get just a total of 13 points, and that does put them in position number 19. And now we're in the top 5. Number 5, the Monk. Combat, they get a 5. Flurry of blows, all the stances, the incredible defenses and reflex saves and all that kind of stuff. Exploration, 2. I can't really think of all that much that they do. Support, 1. Could arguably be a 2, but I guess they have Stunning Fist and a few other things that are good at slowing and debuffing or affecting the enemy, but I can't really think of that many things that a monk does to boost their allies. Roleplay, I gave them a 5 because I really like the sort of backstory of going to a monastery and studying and waking up early in the morning with the sunrise and practicing punching and all that kind of stuff. And my personal opinion is a 3. I do give them a +1 just for being so fast, so dexterous, good AC, and great in all the saves. That is just really, really powerful on the front line. That gives them a total score of 17 with a 0.1 tiebreaker, 17.1, and that lands them at slot number 5. On to number 20, I have the Witch. Now, this is mostly pre-remaster, but I actually feel like it still applies post-remaster too. Gave them just a 2 out of 5 in combat. Depending on the tradition of which you are, you might not have all of the great attack spells with you. I feel like the hexes weren't as powerful as they could be in combat, and even the new familiar abilities are good, but I feel like not great necessarily. Exploration, pretty decent. Again, spellcasters are going to have spells that can help reveal things or find things or hide yourselves or charm people and all that kind of stuff. Support, 3. I mean, that is what a witch in theory is supposed to kind of do with their hexes. Roleplay, they get a 4. There's a lot here. I think, the whole having a patron who kind of comes to you in the night and bestows powers onto you is a really cool thing. My opinion is just a 2, and I do give them a -2 for Cackle not being a free action. It's what I wanted to see. I really wanted the Witch to be this sort of sustained debuffing and buffing master. I thought that would have been a really cool slot to have. We don't really have a sustained debuff mechanic in the game, and I thought the Witch was going to be that, and they weren't, and I'm just a little sour about it. I also honestly don't really love familiars or companions. I kind of feel like sometimes you get caught up in having 2 characters who are just okay, and the way that the math and mechanics of the game work out, that means you kind of can't do anything with either of them. I guess we'll see with the new familiar abilities if that's true, but in general, if something relies on familiars, as you're going to see here, I'm going to rank it a little bit lower, even though I do like the Inventor companion construct. But all of this said, the Witch gets a 12, not a 2. That would be a terrible score, but that does land them at slot number 20. And back to classes that I really like, number 4, the Champion. Combat, they get a 3. They don't hit all that hard, but they do have full martial capabilities and good defenses. Exploration, I did give a 3, although now that I think of it, maybe I would do that as a 2 and combat as a 4, and it'd be about the same anyway. Support, I give them a 5. I mean, they have Lay on Hands, which I think is I think it's the best focus spell that does healing. You can just heal people automatically every 10 minutes. That's fantastic. And then, of course, all the reactions are all about helping your allies, or I guess in some cases it is about helping yourself if you're playing an evil champion, but then you are also debuffing the enemy. So Being able to have a big support action, or reaction I should say, in every round is fantastic. Roleplay, 3, you've got your tenants, which are kind of guiding you there, though I kind of feel like the same as with Anathemas, where it doesn't necessarily come up all that often. And my opinion of them is a 4. I also give them a +1 just for being the king of reactions. Not every character or every class has reactions natively, or sometimes you don't even pick up a reaction until level 5 or 6 or something. I guess it would be 6. And being able to use reactions reliably means you basically have 4 actions every single turn. In addition to that, some of the champion reactions are basically 2 actions, so I almost see them as having 5 actions in every turn, and that is just fantastic. That's why they have a total score of 19, and they are at slot number 4. Okay, I'm going to ruffle some feathers at number 21, which is where I have placed the Fighter. That's right. They get a 5 out of 5 for combat, of course, but only a 1 in exploration because what do they really have? They get 2 for support because there are things like snagging strike that are designed at debuffing enemies. 2 for roleplay because there's not really all that much there. You do have the different sort of styles of fighting which can inform what your character is doing. My opinion of them is very low though, of just a 1. I still think that sort of no subclass expert proficiency is just too different from a lot of the other mechanics, at least the level 1 mechanics of the other classes in the game. And as you kind of saw, I didn't really think they have all that much support or roleplay. So it's a little too focused on just, hey, I'm the fighter, I'm really good, and you're just sort of an island on your own. So they have just 11 total points, and they are at rank number 21. Now we're getting to the top 3 with number 3, the Thaumaturge. Combat, 5. I mean, so many ways to apply static bonus damage on top of everything you do. It's fantastic. Static damage is so helpful in the game. When you are fighting things with hardnesses or resistances, you want to be able to reliably bypass those, and the Thaumaturge can do it. Exploration, they get a 3 because they have a lot of Gish abilities. I mean, Scroll Thaumaturgy, you're a fully martial character who can just, basically pick up scrolls, no problem. That's fantastic. Support, they get a 3 because you do have like the amulet and the chalice and ways to help out your allies. Roleplay, 4. I mean, the basic roleplay of the mechanics of exploit vulnerability, where if you critically fail, you're caught fumbling around and you're off guard. That just is giving you so much fun roleplay right there. And the opinion is a 5. I absolutely love this class. I can't wait to play one. I just think that it's very fun. I like that it's charisma based, even though it is a martial character. I like charisma based characters. I like static damage. I like Gish. The Thaumaturge has all of it. 20 points, number 3 in my list. Now we're getting to the bottom of the bottom, number 22, the Summoner. Combat, 3 out of 5. You can cast some decent spells. Your Eidolon is pretty powerful. Exploration, again, 3. Having that Eidolon who can be separate from you and share some senses, and then all of those evolution surges you can give your Eidolon are really helpful. Support, 2. I sort of feel like when you're already 2 characters, you're sort of concentrated on just keeping the 2 of you in sync, and you don't have a lot of time to think about your allies. Roleplay, 3. I almost feel like having the 2 characters, the pet and then the main, almost distracts from roleplay a little bit. And then they really suffer on the opinion, and I'm also giving them a -2 points for just you be you. This is just me, I fundamentally don't like having the secondary character, the Eidolon, be the primary character, if that makes sense. It's more powerful and more useful, and it's sort of what you're supposed to be using, and you, the commander of it, I guess, almost feel like the backup character. And I just think that's a little bit weird. I also think that the way that the action economy of commanding your Eidolon and how that's different from other minion trait sort of, I guess not other minion traits because it's not a minion, but you know what I mean, from other familiars, companions, how it's different is a little confusing. That's going to lead to some long turns and just sort of needing to double check rules. So yeah, it's not bad mechanically. It's just really, really not my playstyle. It's not what I would want to do. So I'm going to give them just 10 total points, a tiebreaker, 10.1, and that does put them second from last at number 22. And now on to my second place class, the Wizard. Wizards are fantastic. I give them a 3 out of 5 in combat because the arcane spell list is very powerful. They now have all simple weapon proficiencies, but up until a few weeks ago, they didn't. No armor, so they're pretty squishy. Just a 3 out of 5, but they do have access to some of the most classic damage spells in the game, area of effect spells, so they're still pretty decent. Exploration, I give them a 4. Wizards have more spell slots than any other magical class in the game. And to me, that means it's pretty easy to keep a spell slot or two open for an exploration type spell. You're not necessarily worried about running out of spells that you need to stay alive or to kill the enemy in combat, so you can carry around a charm or something like that that allows you to do something in exploration a lot easier than some of the other magic classes in the game. I also give them a 4 in support because kind of the same reason. You have extra spell slots, so it's a little bit easier to go ahead and buff your allies or debuff enemies with them. There's also the formerly Abjuration, now Ars Grammatica wizard that focuses on protection with Protector Tree, I think, Shattering Gem, the Protective Ward focus spell. So a lot of good support options there. Roleplay, 4. You've got that hook where you went to school. You sought this out. You weren't just born with it. So there's a lot of backstory potential there. And then opinion is 4 with a +1 just for being the most magical. I really like that. You know, it's not often you can say a class is the most something, like mathematically, but you can here. They get a total score of 20 with a tiebreaker of 0.1, and the Wizard is my second most favorite class. All right, and if you've been keeping track, you know there are only 2 classes that remain. Which one do you think will be my least favorite? Which one will be my favorite? Ready? Least favorite is the Oracle. Sorry, Oracle. Here we go. I give them a 3 out of 5 in combat. The Battle Oracle is pretty decent. Exploration and support are just a 2 and a 1. I feel like with the complexity of the curses and the mechanical debuffs you're often kind of granting yourself, it gets a little difficult to think about what's happening elsewhere, to think about your allies, to think about your surroundings, all those things, when you have so much going on literally in your own head. But that does give them a 5 out of 5 for role-playing, because there is so much going on in your own head. My opinion of them is just a 1, though, and I'm going to go ahead and give them a -2 on top of that due to the complications of the curses. It's tough for me to kind of objectively state this. It really is just something I don't know. It's just the way I feel. I'm just not excited about oracles all that much. I've actually never completed a Theorycraft build of an oracle, and I think I have 5 or 6 at least Theorycrafts of every other class. Oracle's one that as I get into it, I'm always thinking I would rather do this sort of thing with a different class. So I don't know, that's where I am. It's my least favorite class with just 10 total points, though I know a lot of people really like it. I cannot I cannot ignore the roleplay there, and I think if I was a little bit more roleplay minded and a little bit less mechanics and combat minded, I would like the Oracle a lot more. All right, and if you've been following closely along, you know that my number 1 is the Bard. Bards are fantastic. I give them a 4 out of 5 for combat. The occult spell list has some really powerful spells. They've always had very good weapon training for a spellcaster, and now they even have full martial weapon proficiency. they're the only caster that does that. They also have light armor. I mean, they are just great whether they are up front hitting things or in the back casting spells. Exploration is a 4 out of 5. Your charisma based, that's going to be really helpful. But also, you are a trained performer. You'll probably have really good performance skill, as well as maybe a specific lore or something that helps in exploration as well. Support, obviously a 5. I mean, this is kind of what the Bard has always been about, is supporting your allies through Courageous Anthem, through Song of Marching, through Song of Strength. All of those composition cantrips are all about supporting your allies. You can do healing too. You've got the Soothe spell on the occult spell list, and then also Hymn of Healing. So you are just going to be good in literally every part of support. Of course, debuffing as well with Dirge of Doom. And then you can also just, do Intimidation or cast Fear. Just fantastic at support. Roleplay, 4 out of 5. There are a lot of, role-playing opportunities, given that you are trained in a performance and you're going to be the face of the party. And then finally, my opinion is a 5. I just really like this class. To me, it really defines gishiness while still being very fun in social encounters. It just sort of has everything you could possibly want, and I think the mechanics of it are fantastic. I'm also giving the Bard a +1 for their ability to choose multiple muses with Multifarious Muse. I know that other classes like the Druid with their Order Explorer do have the ability to pick up other subclass features, but I feel like the Bard gets better use out of that. The abilities you get from your other muses are better than the abilities you get from the other Druidic orders. So I think it is just a great way that you can kind of pick your Bard, focus on one subclass mostly, but then by level 4 or 6, pick up multiple other subclasses. Yeah, it is just the best. I would recommend having a Bard in every one of your parties. They get a score of 23 and they land at position number 1, my ultimate favorite class. All right, there we have it. Just to recap, in order, starting at the top, we've got 1 through 5 is the Bard, Wizard, Thaumaturge, Champion, and Monk. 6 through 10, the Cleric, Kineticist, Psychic, Magus, and Ranger. Then we're moving on to the Swashbuckler, Druid, Barbarian, Rogue, and Investigator. 16 through 20, Sorcerer, Inventor, Alchemist, Gunslinger, Witch, and then the bottom 3, the Fighter, the Summoner, and the Oracle. And there we did it. There's my 1 through 23 ranking. I think that it would be interesting to do a tier list maybe next time, because there was a pretty big grouping in the middle, which I think goes to say that this is a really balanced game and pretty much every class is viable and you could play anything out there, even if I just said I don't like it. It's just personal opinion for the most part. There are some mechanical things that I think make some classes objectively better than others, but for the most part, it doesn't matter. And I would like to invite you to let me know if you disagree with me about anything in the comments, but I'm sure you've already started to do that, so I guess just continue. Just remember, it doesn't matter where I ranked your favorite class or where you would rank mine or how I would end up changing my rankings literally the next time I look at this list, because if you're rolling garbage and your GM is rolling hot, you're going to die either way. I mean, couple of 1s from you, couple of 20s from the GM, doesn't matter if you're out there as a Bard or a Summoner, you're toast.